John, Joe Biden was in the Situation Room receiving his daily briefing on the crisis in Afghanistan when the attack actually happened. He stayed there with his Defense Secretary, his Secretary of State, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff as the events unfolded. Of course, he himself had been warning of an imminent danger of an attack from a group like ISIS-K. That's the reason he said that he had decided to stick to the deadline of August the 31st to finish the U.S. withdrawal and end the evacuation process. And make no mistake, this attack today is Joe Biden's worst nightmare realized. The thinking had been that, as bad as those initial images were of Afghans clinging to planes, that had Joe Biden been able to pull off the evacuation quickly and safely, that he might stave off some of that intense criticism that he received for having been taken by surprise by the fall of Kabul. But now, with the Pentagon confirming U.S. servicemen deaths in the attack today, I think all bets are off for Joe Biden. Two big questions remain. What will be his response, if any, to the Taliban, who assured that no attack like this would take place by a group like ISIS-K as long as U.S. troops remained on the ground, and whether or not they will be able to continue the evacuation process. I spoke to one U.S. veteran who's been trying to get Afghans out, and he told me today that both his private planes had been grounded, and that when I asked him what the chances were of him getting any of his Afghans out, he told me very grimly that his chances were slim to zero.
Siobhan Kennedy. We are joined now by the former CIA chief Leon Panetta, who also served as U.S. Defense Secretary under President Obama. Leon Panetta, thank you very much for joining us. What are the implications now of U.S. military deaths?
Well, it's a reminder that on 9/11 we went to war against terrorism. And we continue to be at war against terrorism, whether it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Boko Haram or Al-Shabaab. And the lesson here is that you can walk away from a battlefield in that war, but you can't walk away from that war. ISIS is going to continue to attack. We're going to continue to be at war with terrorism, wherever it is. And this is a reminder that the United States, and for that matter, our allies, Great Britain and others, are going to have to continue to be unified in the war against terrorism.
Biden's presidency surely has been seriously weakened by this. I mean, these U.S. servicemen, have they died in vain?
I don't believe that when servicemen put their lives on the line and are fighting to protect their country, that the loss of those lives is in vain. I think that they served with courage and with distinction, and I think we have to respect the sacrifice that they made. I think for the Biden administration, obviously, this is the president's worst nightmare. He was trying to get out of Afghanistan with any additional casualties, and now we've had this bomb. Now, there have been warnings. We know that ISIS was threatening to attack, and that is the nature of the war that we're in. They are going to attack, and we have to be able to respond. And I hope that the United States is trying to find ways to respond to this terrible attack.
We're just hearing now that we think the numbers of soldiers that have died is now 10.
You know, that's a tragic impact on lives and on our armed forces, and I think the United States will truly mourn the fact that we are the victims of this kind of attack. But you know, many have died in this war on terrorism. When I was CIA director, I lost 7 CIA officers to a suicide bomber in host Afghanistan. And those kinds of events took place a great deal when we were in the middle of a war in Afghanistan. I just think this is a wake-up call that, you know, I know the president would like to have brought our troops home and could basically protect our troops in the future. But when you're at war, and we are at war, we're going to have to confront these terrorists wherever they're located.
Let me ask you, where is the United Nations in all this? I mean, so far, it's been a tremendous failure of that body, has it not?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, one would hope that the United Nations would be playing a very significant role here in trying to work with the Taliban to allow the remaining individuals, our remaining citizens, the Afghans who work with us, the opportunity to be able to be evacuated and do it with some degree of security. I think what this indicates is...
Forgive me, but without their leadership, how are we going to get the world to respond to the masses of Afghans desperate to leave?
Well, I think the problem is that the Taliban, let us not forget, were terrorists, and they provided a safe haven for terrorists. That's how we got into 9/11. And so I don't have a great deal of trust in their capacity to be able to provide security or to be able to, for that matter, govern Afghanistan in an effective way. I think what we're seeing is the beginning of a lot of civil wars in Afghanistan. ISIS against the Taliban.
On that grim forecast, thank you very much for joining us, Leon Panetta. Thank you.
Good to be with you.